What up, everyone? What is up? I'm your host, Karissa Adkins, and you're listening to the Boss Up Babe Show. Now, today, I am here with an amazing boss babe and coach, and she is Meaghan. I wanted to drum roll if I could get one of those. That'd be awesome. But yeah, I'm so excited to be able to bring Meaghan on to the Boss Up Babe Show. Now, Meaghan regards herself as a seeker from a very young age, born and raised in a generation where personal growth was not the norm. She was raised into being told who to become and how to fit in. The result? A lot of suffering, drugs, anxiety, and overwhelm, and of course, depression followed Meaghan with that story. Now, Meaghan has spent the last 20 years steeped in the ancient traditions of yoga, meditation, and modern science on how to actually create lasting change. Meaghan is a mama of two, and in my opinion, a total badass boss babe. She coaches mothers on how to get out of overwhelm and depletion so that they can live lives of vitality, enthusiasm, and she shows these mamas how to teach their kids how to do it too. So Meaghan, welcome to the Boss Up Babe Show. How are you today?
Hey, so good. Thank you for having me. So happy
Absolutely.
to be here.
Good. Yeah, I'm happy to have you as my first guest and on for episode 2. So now y'all know that I am a big believer that every woman has a story, a journey, and a purpose. We all experience setbacks and hardships and struggles and moments of challenges in our lives. And as women, we can either choose to stay stuck or we can choose to boss the hell up and live our best life. But bossing up takes courage and strength and willingness to change. So Meaghan, I'm so excited because I think that I found that everyone that I ask what the word boss up means to them, we all have our own kind of definition of it. So what would you say when the first comes to mind when you hear the words boss up?
First thing that comes to mind is level up, courage, taking the reins of your life, getting out of victim, and really, taking the reins of your life to really take responsibility for your life and creating it.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, and I totally resonate with the whole, like, just level up and you have to take your life in your own hands if you're wanting to change and make changes.
Yeah. There's like a hardball you kind of need to start to get to play with yourself, a seriousness where you're just like, all right, enough with the shit already. Sorry, am I allowed to say that? Sorry.
We'll be killed if we can't.
But just like cut the crap already. Like I'm done. I'm done living stuck. I'm done living in a place where I'm not feeling in alignment. I'm done feeling the heaviness, the weightiness, just the cycle of feeling unfulfilled, And so you got to get to a point where you're just, whether it's your bottom or, whatever your bottom is, usually it comes in the form, for me, it came in the form of like anxiety. It was just like, wake up.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to wake up anymore. Like literally.
It's true. And I think a lot of women can relate to, like, we feel this, but we don't know how to get unstuck. Right. I mean, I was there for many, many years. So knowing that the word boss up really resonates with you, with like level up, take the reins back at, your life back into your hands. Tell me about a time in your life where you had to level up and boss up and reclaim your best life that really got you where you are today.
Man. All right. Which one? God, I feel like I'm like in it right now too. Like just another level. Because quite honestly, I believe that as long as we're humans, we're going to be constantly evolving if we choose it, right? There's always going to be another level of evolution. And so I'm not going to go with the first time necessarily, but the time that I most recently leveled up, bossed up was when I was pregnant with my son.
Mm.
And I had already been, that was 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, when I was probably, I don't know, 18-ish weeks pregnant. And I went for a walk in the woods, and I just had this visceral feeling, um, where it was like this voice inside. It was like, or like he was almost talking to me. It was that's kind of the level of which I felt,
Mhm.
where it was like, Mama, it's time. Like, it's time to do your work now. So that, and I understood it as like, you got to do your work now so that you're not leaving this stuff with me.
Mm.
Like, that was the level of like clarity that I got. And it was then, and like, I opened up my yoga studio. I really, and then from there, it's just been an evolution of, and even as I speak to it now, it's just like, it wasn't like that. It was that moment of clarity of that point in the journey where it was going to be like, this is your work now for a while. This is
Mm.
your work for a while. You're going to start it now, but it's not going to necessarily be over for a little while. And even as I say it, I'm realizing how true that really is for me. How it's just a process and an evolution of becoming,
Mhm.
not of getting it perfect.
Right.
And so you start your like, I started my way down the path. Like, I took that first step, and it was like, the first step for me was like opening my yoga studio. And then it was enrolling and investing in coaching, and then in a coaching program. And now where I teach so it's like, it's been this constant journey of stepping up and leveling up, and an evolution of, and a process of becoming, because it's not like there's an end point,
No. No.
right?
And well, you bring up, let me just ask you first off, because I've been in that stuck state. I've been to the moment where I've hit rock bottom and all of rock, and I felt like my son was crying out to me as I was sitting there. However, why choose yoga? Like, how did you land on yoga?
Mm.
You said, you went from like this aha moment that I believe we all have. We just have to slow down enough to like listen and find it and hear it. Whether it be from nature or the universe or God or our own children or our own intuition. But why? How did you choose yoga? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a good question. I got into yoga actually in college. I had to fill a phys ed requirement, and I
Yeah.
just really took to the practice. I was always really physical, and so I really liked the physical practice of it. Got out of it for a couple of years, and then I was going through this is when I was really going down a path where it was not a good path of drugs, and it really led me to a lot of anxiety, and overwhelm. I was in college, a straight A student, but I got to this point where I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't even focus in school. It was a really challenging time. And I went into this meditation retreat with my sister at the time, and it was healing in a lot of ways. And I got this mantra out of it, which was, "You are not your thoughts."
Hmm.
And I kept taking that. I took that with me because I was so weighted by the busyness of my mind at that time, and I couldn't get a way out. So I just held to that. I am not my thoughts. It got me to a place of connection to something beyond
Mhm.
what I was experiencing day in and day out, anxiety, like overwhelming anxiety.
Yeah.
And so at that point, I had already been into a yoga practice, but I was at that point really into the gym, and I was physically fit, but emotionally unfit.
Right.
And so I went back to a yoga practice and therapy and all these other modalities. I was like, I have a choice here. This was like the first time I leveled up. I was like, I
Okay.
have a real
Okay.
choice
Level
here.
one of level up.
Yeah, this was like, definitely, I was like, I have a choice. I can continue on trajectory that I'm on, which is going to lead me to God knows where.
Sure.
Certainly not talking to you right now. Or I can start to really care for myself. And I chose that because I was like, this alternative feels entirely too much and feels pretty crappy, and I don't want to be here anymore. And so I went back to my yoga mat, and the teacher in whom I was in the room, and I remember it clear as day, I just cried on my mat, and I like face down, because it was the first time that I had actually heard in a physical practice, and I knew yoga was healing, but in this physical practice where I was encouraged to feel everything and that what I was feeling was valid. And I had never been told that before.
Hmm.
And I just like this cathartic release of just being like, this is my path home.
Hmm.
This is it. And so I knew that my yoga was just going to be part of my journey for the rest of my life. I had 0.0 idea of what that was going to look like, that I was going to be a yoga teacher, that I was going to be a meditation teacher, that I was going to open a studio, that I was going to, like, I had zero idea of where it was going to lead me. I just knew that the practice itself, that I was going to be a lifelong student.
I love that. I love that. Let me go back to, because I know I read it in your bio and I was like, man, I did not grow up with like this is who you're going to be, you know, like this is fit in this little box, if you will, Karissa, and make sure you hit all the stepping stones along the way. So what was the idea that you thought you were like growing up? What was the idea that you thought you were going to have to go into or be? Like, who were you told to be, I
Yeah.
guess?
Yeah. Well, geez. Growing up in an Irish Catholic family, don't feel.
Mm,
Feel. It's not okay to feel. It's not okay to be a sexual woman. It's not okay to own your womanhood, just to be quiet, to be, don't push buttons, don't say what you really think, don't be too out there, you know?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, it was
yeah,
just this
yeah.
place of like, not showcasing who I really was. And that was just all implicit, it was all of
Mhm.
these cultural and familial, traumas, if you will, that got passed down, that ancestral healing, you call it, right? Is the stuff that I, acquired into my belief system, that never fully resonated, that never really, I was never encouraged to be the boisterous, energized girl that I was. It was like, no, just tame it, just calm
Yeah.
it down. And anytime that I did share anything, I felt ridiculed. I don't know that I actually was, but it felt that way. So I never really felt safe enough to really show who I was.
Mm,
Um, and so I felt very boxed in.
yeah.
And I always felt like the black sheep of my family.
Mm,
And again, not that I was, but it's just how I felt, and
sure.
how it all sort of, sifted out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so leading me to a yoga practice was like the place where I was like, oh, that, yoga, um, and the practice, and not just the asana practice, not just the physical practice, but the philosophy just teaches you to see what real truth is. And it
Yeah.
teaches you to see what your real purpose is. And it's called Maya. It's this illusion. It's this veil that we sort of layer on, all these different sheets that we layer on of beliefs and mind and emotions and the lens through which we see. And then yoga starts to peel that away so that you can really see into who you really are, and then share that with the world.
That's crazy. So I'll be honest, like I've taken maybe 2 yoga classes in my entire life. And I've thought, I'm like, I love it. I meditate, like I'm a spiritual person. But I got in there and I realized first thing, you can't have a ton of pre-workout and come straight from a Zumba class, because I was like wired up, right? I was like, oh, I can't even settle down. I got kicked out pretty much. And then the second one, I was like, this is just, I'm not in the right zone. And maybe it was just, I was feeling a lot of emotions that day, and maybe I didn't want to break down. Like, I was like, this is not a place to break down and lose my shit, if you will. But it's crazy because I'm like, man, you learn all that through yoga, and you figured out your life through, starting level 1 was that yoga.
Mhm.
What you all said with, like when I heard you say, I was told to, not share emotions and not show this. I just think play small. And I think a lot of
Yeah.
women, we tend to play small instead and just like fit in with everybody,
Mhm.
because of these old beliefs or limitations, or, again, stories that we've just brought on, based on what our surroundings were as children. But it's so fun, wouldn't you say? And as a coach, isn't it fun to see women like transform into this like holy crap, where have you been, woman?
Yeah.
Would you say, like, tell me a little bit more, because I know you're a coach, and I know you
Mhm.
bring clearly in the yoga into, into your practice, but tell me about a little bit about what you do as a coach.
Yeah. So I teach women, mothers, who are really depleted and overwhelmed and frustrated and tired, and how to get out of that, how to get out of that cycle of, because that's not our true nature. And when you say, what is my true nature? What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
Right. What the heck does that actually mean? What's my true nature? Yeah. Okay. I get that. Right. There's this like element of like, well, you're are normal. See, like we've normalized like overwhelm. We've normalized, and as moms adopting all of these beliefs that are coming at us, like you're not going to sleep until your kids are in college, or you're never going to sleep again, or whatever. Like, so we've even normalized this idea of how to care for ourselves as women and as mothers, that to be a good mother, you must sacrifice yourself and all of yourself and all of your needs and desires. Right. And we must sidestep our needs and desires in order to be a good mother. And so there's these beliefs that we've just sort of adopted. And so a lot of what I do and help moms do is sort of untangle these beliefs so that we're operating at a place that is coming from adopting a new belief, in which is, if I want to be a good mother, I better start taking care of myself.
Yeah.
I better start living my purpose and my desires and my dreams if I want my kids to have any chance at doing it for themselves.
Right.
Right? We model the behavior that our children, and so if our nervous system is wired and tired, is overwhelmed, what do you think our children are going to be learning? They're going to be learning exactly the strategies and the tools that we're adopting ourselves, which is, let me check out and numb out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Whatever that's going to be, with Netflix, with alcohol, with food, with even overworking out.
Yeah.
Right? You can even do it with overworking out. Like, so is rest, people don't think of rest as like productive. Right? And so it's just basically taking habits, healthier habits, which I teach 10 Ayurvedic habits to reset that nervous system. And it's rooted in movement and meditation and eating, and not even what to eat, but how to eat.
How to eat. Mm-hmm.
Doing it in a way that is and optimal for the individual, because we're not a one size fits all. Right? What's going to balance you is not going to balance me, because we have different energies that are in us. So I need something that's going to be really different. And so how do you do that in an individual approach? And so that's what's the beauty of Ayurveda. Ayurveda takes into account that, like, I'm a different energy than you. I have different makeup. And so I don't necessarily need the exact same routine as you do. And so I address those sorts of things as well for people.
Cool. And I definitely, because this show is not just about like featuring this amazing story of yours, because again, I believe that every woman has one. And one of my mentors, Les Brown, he said, our stories are not ours to hold. Like they are there to share the world. They are there to help others overcome. And that just really sat with me. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, you're right. So I want to definitely get into some keys and strategies here in a minute. But I just want to make sure that all of our viewers and listeners know how to find you, right? So if something really resonates with them, or they're like, oh, what is that? I'm curious, I have questions, they can definitely come to you as the expert in this industry. And if they're feeling overwhelmed and depleted. So Meaghan, what's the best way for viewers to find you? What's your good content?
Yeah. So my vibrant-living.co is my website that sort of delineates the coaching program that I have. And also I do a biannual cleanse that's coming up actually in April, that just sort of helps kickstart people think of cleanses as like deprivation. And this approach to cleanse is really about deep nourishment. Yeah. So it's not about like starving yourself. It's about how you actually like, dial it back and start to ask the questions of like, what do I need to do right now to deeply nourish nourish myself, and how do I want to feel? And so there's contemplative questions and things like that. So there's a cleanse that's coming up too. But
Cool. Cool. I love that. So, and just so everyone else knows, that will be in the show notes, and it's posted on lots of different platforms on how to find Meaghan, and cleanse. Yeah, it's funny because even as a health coach, right? So many women, they're like, "Oh, you have a cleanse, right?" And I'm like, "Well, what's your idea of a cleanse?" And they'll say, "Oh, like detoxing with vinegar." And I'm like, "Oh, that does sounds like a terrible cleanse. Like, who would want to do that and starve themselves for a couple of days just to get rid of some of those toxins?" But yeah, it's always interesting. Just like the word boss up and hustle, we all have our own imprint of what we believe that it is. And it's good to hear another coach put like a different spin on cleanse. I love that.
It's such a hot topic and people like to do it, but it's really about why is it that you're doing it? Like, what's your intention for doing it? And there's nothing wrong and there's no judgment around why, but your why and your what can help you sort of suss out like which cleanse is going to be the right one for you, and how to actually approach a cleanse, you know. So I've done many over my life, and this is one that is definitely the most nourishing.
Beautiful. Awesome. All right, my favorite part. So let's talk keys to your success, tips and strategies that will help other women who are listening boss up too. So what would be your biggest key to your success, would you think, over the last couple of years, from pretty much that moment on the hike to now? What would you say would be the biggest key to your success?
Meditation.
And
meditation is certainly
and for someone who's just starting out on how to meditate, what would be just some key pointers? Because I know I used to think, oh, I don't have like an hour and 30 minutes or a long amount of time, or I don't even know how to get started or where to get started with that. So give us just some basics on that.
The tip one, really, just follow your breath. It is the simplest approach to getting, and I'm not going to say still or quiet, but to be aware. Is to simply be aware of the flow of your breath, because your life is on your breath, right? Your life exists within your breath.
Right.
And so when you tap into just this simple flow, breath in and out, in and out, in and out, you're starting to tap into flow for one. You start to feel and you become more sensitive to more of what's happening, just what the heck is going on inside. And so a couple of things that I would definitely mention for people who are experienced meditators, but certainly for beginning meditators, is if you want to start a meditation practice, and it's one of the ways in which I coach, is to Kaizen, which is a Kaizen approach, is you start small. You work on building the habit, not about getting it right or getting it perfect. It's about progress. And if you want to build a habit that's sustainable long-term, start small. Start with 1 minute, 2 minutes, something that seems so simple that it's like so stupid that you can't do it.
Right.
It's so silly. Like it's almost like, well, then what's the point? The point is that you're building a habit. You're becoming a meditator, not right. You're becoming a person who meditates, adopting the identity of a meditator. And so you start really small. That's number one. Picking a consistent time and place to do it is number two. Something that you can stick with, whether it's the first thing when you wake up, or maybe it's if you can consistently do it a minute or two before you go to bed. And then incrementally each week adding on, a little bit more time, another minute or 2 or 3 or 5. Another thing I love to mention is that people think that meditation is controlling the mind, that you have to control your thoughts. And that can't be further from the truth. You take a moment to look at your mind and it's jumping all around, right? It's analyzing, it's fixing, it's just doing what it does and what it's meant to do, to analyze, to judge, to criticize, that's just what it does. The job of a meditation practice is to become the observer, is to just watch it. Because when you're trying to control, you're efforting and it can be really exhausting.
Yeah.
And,
When you're trying
and
to force that push, you can't shut it off that way.
no, you can't shut it off. The only way to get more quiet and to get more still is to watch it, not to control it.
Mhm.
And that can be really challenging for people. But the other thing about meditation is that it's a cumulative practice, so that the more you do it, the better the more skill you build at
Mhm.
watching and becoming the observer, not in your experiences, but with your experiences. And when you become with your experiences, you become more impactful and powerful to change them.
I love that. So, all right, if I just have to quickly recap, your biggest key to your success is meditation.
Mm.
And to break that down for the basic person who's trying to like implement this into their daily lifestyle is number one, start small. Right.
Mm.
Small hinges swing very large doors is what I always say.
Mm.
And so start small with a 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute. Follow your breath. So when you feel like your mind's going all over the place, just come back into the breath, come back into the body, and just observe. Right. And then your third tip on that would be to kind of pick one solid time throughout the day, because that's how we build habits and rituals and routines. Is if if you're going to try it in the morning, try it in the morning. Give it a solid effort at the morning, and then and if you notice it doesn't fit, then just flex that a little bit. So those are beautiful tips. I'll make sure that I get those posted. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And I just appreciate you being here with me today. So with that, I just want to say thank you listening for everyone who's listening. So ladies, boss babes and queens and mamas, I hope that you enjoyed today's Boss Up Babe story, tips, and Meaghan's expert advice. In case you missed any part of today's episode, you can always head over to the 365dailyhustle.com website and catch the replay. Join me on April 13th. I'll be right back here on the Boss Up Babe radio show. Well, I will have my next guest, Miss Christina Ramirez, with us today. So with that, Meaghan, thank you so much for being on the Boss Up Babe show. I wish you so much success. Stay thriving out there.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Boss Up Babe radio show with Karissa Adkins, bringing you tangible tips and expert coaching advice to help you boss up and get healthy. Tune in every second and fourth Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com for interviews with industry leaders and powerhouse boss babes that will empower you to take action and live your best life. If you're ready to boss up and work with Karissa in one of her transformative group coaching programs, visit 365dailyhustle.com.